Okay, guys, so this is the last video for chapter 8, our angles, and basically it's the review video, which of course that means you have a quiz coming up, right? Okay, so look at Canvas, you'll see that it's probably around the 16th when we're going to have that quiz, right? So you got a quiz coming up. This is just, can you do the stuff on the quiz? Okay, so you know the routine. You're going to show the work, you're going to answer the questions, and you're gonna check and see if you got the right answers. I'll plug in the answers, and at the end, you can review the ones that you made mistakes on, and then you can fast forward to see the explanations for the ones you still don't think you understand. Make sure you're showing me an equation for each one of these. Okay, go to it. Hit pause, do these problems, and then hit play, and I'll move up to the other ones. Okay, so here's your answers. You should have set up the equation, at least that much of an equation, and then you solved it and got x equals 64 degrees. Okay, and then triangle A is scaling because none of the angles are the same, means none of the sides are the same. Triangle B is isosceles because two of the sides are the same. Triangle C is equilateral because all of the angles are the same, which means all of the sides are the same. And triangle D is scaling because none of the sides are the same. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Remember, give me equations because that's the 7th grade math part. You're supposed to be giving me equations for each one of these. You're going to want to remember what the meaning of complement and supplement is because that's the key to setting up those equations. Okay, so you're checking to see 1, can you write out the equation? 2, can you figure out it's the complement, supplement, or the measure of x? Okay, go. Okay, here's your answers. On the first one, the complement is 30 degrees. On B, the measure of the supplement is 46 degrees. You would have set up that you could have set up saying measure of angle A plus 134 equals 180 degrees. And the last one, you would have said that the measure of angle 1 plus 60 degrees equals 90 degrees. So the measure of angle 1, or x, the value of x is 30 degrees. Okay, so that's the gist of that. Remember, you're setting up an equation. So you should see angles like measure of angle A plus 60 equals 90. Measure of angle A plus 134 equals 180. Measure of angle 1 plus 60 equals 90, because what we're trying to do is teach you how to set up equations so that when you're ready for next year, so that when you see these things next year, you can set these equations up, know how to set up the harder problems, and be able to solve from there. So that's the goal, that you know how to do more than just plug in the numbers and understand how to use equations to solve these problems. Because they're not always going to be as easy. So now set up the equation for this one and find the value of x. And then from there, find the actual measure of each angle. Remember, you're looking at these angles, you can't measure them with a protractor because they're not necessarily accurate. So you're going to set up an equation to find x, and then you're going to use what you found, you're going to apply it to find the measure of each angle. Okay? So we talked about set it up, solve, and apply. Okay, go. Okay, so here's your solution. So again, expect to see this equation. That you have 6x plus x minus 16 equals 180. That you solve that equation to equal x equals 28. Then you plug that in, you applied, right? Because this is what we said. You were going to set it up, you were going to apply, or you were going to solve, and then you were going to apply. So that means you're going to find the actual measures. So that the measure of angle 1 is 168 degrees, and the measure of angle 2 is 12 degrees, and when you add those two together, they come up to be 180 degrees. 68 plus 12 is 180. So when you add those two, they should add up to 180 degrees because this is a straight line, which means it's 180 degrees. All right. So if you can do this, that means you did this well, right? And if you did this well, then this was simpler because it was just doing more with a few more parts, okay? So if you could do well on this, you could do well on the quiz. Good luck. Okay. If you're done, you got 100% on this, you got nothing more to worry about. If you don't have 100% on this, then just fast forward to the parts where I explain how to do each part. All right, so that's 8 minutes. You checked, you probably spent 15 minutes on the problems. Okay, make sure you showed me how to set up the equation, how to solve, you solved it, you showed your work, is justifying your answer, you came up with the correct solution. Okay, good luck. Okay, so this is that extended part. So we already set up the equation. So all we're going to do, we're going to add these two together, right? We add these two together. So we have 116 plus x equals 180. So we're going to subtract 116 from both sides, which means that x equals 64. Okay. And if we checked, we add 64 plus 61 and 55. Those should all add up to 180 degrees. Because a triangle, the sum of all the angles equals 180 degrees. That's the rule that you need to understand for the next 4 years. Okay? All right. So when you look at these, just to give a quick explanation, if the angles are different, right, they're not equivalent, that means the sides are different. And you can actually say it's a proportional relationship because if it's got a bigger angle, the opposite side is the bigger side. But you can see all the angles are different, so therefore the sides must be different. Therefore, it's a scalene because that's the definition of a scalene triangle. If we look, these two sides are the same on triangle B, but not the third one. So that makes it not equilateral, but the sides are the same on two of the sides. So that makes it isosceles. Okay? Okay, so we generally call it isosceles. And then if we look on triangle C, all the angles are the same. So just as in triangle A, when all the angles were different, all the sides were different, if all the angles are the same, then all the sides are the same. So therefore, this is an equilateral triangle, which means equa, right? Sides. Equa means equal, lateral means sides. Okay? And then if you look on triangle D, all of these sides are different lengths, which means it's a scalene triangle. Okay. Okay, so now as you look at these three problems, when you look at the first one, you would have had the measure of angle A plus 60 equals 90. You would have just subtracted 60 from both sides, and you would have gotten the measure of angle A is 30 degrees. Okay. Again, this is a simple equation. You're showing that you can use algebra to communicate what you found and to justify your answer. So we're going to subtract 134 from both sides, which means the measure of angle A equals 46 degrees, because 180 minus 134 is 46. Okay. But the key there is you had to remember supplement means 180 degrees and complement means add up to 90 degrees. Okay. All right. And then example number 8, of course, we had that measure of angle 1. They tell us that this whole thing, this right here, this symbol right here tells us these are 90 degrees. These two add up to 90 degrees. So we're talking about complements. So then we're going to take away 60 from both sides, and we're going to get to the measure of angle 1 equals 30 degrees, which means x equals 30. X doesn't equal 30 degrees, x just equals 30. Okay, so that's important that you can set it up as an equation. Because if you can't set that up as an equation, you probably can't set this up as an equation. Okay, so then when we solve this, we would look at this and we'll turn this into addition. So we'll say plus negative 16. So we wind up with 6x plus x plus negative 16 equals 180. We'd add 16 to both sides, but at the same time, we'd be changing this to 7x because there's a 1 right there. Right? And so we have that plus negative 16 equals 180. We'd add 16 to both sides, so we wind up with 7x equals 196. We divide both sides by 7, we get that x equals 28. So then we would just plug it in and say we have 6 times 28, which is 168. Measure angle 2 was x minus 16, which means we'd have 28 minus 16, which is 12. So that means this is 12 degrees, and this is 168 degrees. Remember what we said, they're not to scale. So you can't just take a protractor, because 12 degrees would be more like, well, if you thought about it, this is 90 degrees, that's 45 degrees. That's got to be about 12 degrees right there. So this is not a scale drawing of the actual angles. It's just a sketch to give you a thought about what you're doing. So it's not accurate, so you can't use a protractor to measure it. And after all, what we're after is, can you use the things that we learned from second quarter, solving equations, and apply it in geometry, things that we think you've probably learned a lot of last year and year before last. We're putting the two things together. That's the purpose of this. All right. Okay, if you can do these, we think you're going to do pretty good on the quiz. So make sure you're doing the 8A review. Make sure you have 100% on that. Be ready for the quiz, and you'll be fine. It's the first essential quiz on this fourth term. Okay, good luck.